I think it's going now. Yay! Awesome. All right. Oh man, internet outage, the great internet outage of 2019. Yeah, thanks for weathering the storm and thanks for being so patient with me.
Yeah, no problem.
I've had a lot going on this year. It's been really intense, man. I don't know
sure.
what I was thinking throwing a baby into the mix.
Oh yeah, congratulations on that.
Cheers, man. Thanks. Word. So why don't you tell me how you've been getting on in the dojo?
How I've been getting on? Good. I mean, the first year I was a lot more serious about it because I had a lot less classes. But I picked up like some harder classes this semester.
Oh,
so
cool.
I kind of was doing it like, what's that?
What are you taking?
Engineering.
Nice.
Yeah. So this semester and the winter semester and then this summer it's been a little bit more on and off. But the past like couple weeks I've been a lot more into it. So
okay, word. And then like when you're off, probably are you off for the summer? Or yeah,
I have one summer class though, so it's not a lot.
Oh wow, lots of version saves on this one. That's good. That usually bodes well. Oh, you worked on this for a long time.
Yeah, I spend probably too long on songs.
No, I don't know, man. It's like when you know they're gonna be awesome, then spend all the time you want.
Yeah, I've been procrastinating a lot of like the productive, more boring things I need to do with music production, like making a library. I just did that yesterday. It's been like 2 years.
Okay, you got all the ones in the dojo, right? In the member area, the member vault. You got like the studio template and all that shit.
Yeah, I do. I just need to. I haven't finished sorting my library because I'm kind of having like some, I don't know, deliberations about how to organize it all. And then I haven't done any timers yet either.
To be fair, it doesn't really need to be that organized as long as it's in the Ableton, the places inside of Ableton, and then the search function works pretty quick. So as long as you kind of like you pick a naming convention, like all my racks, I put ill dot at the beginning of the rack, and then I know it's one of mine. So I just like type ill and then like filter or ill and whatever, and then I'll have beat repeat, and then I'll have my ill version of that rack. Or you can make or you can use the colors in the places. So I mean, the color folders you can kind of just do it on the fly. So it doesn't really matter too much where it is on your hard drive. It's really more about how Ableton organizes it. And a lot of that you can just do it with the search function, search out everything that has a certain criteria and then put it in the favorites.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, I just didn't know like I've got like my like, every folder of all the different kinds of sounds. And then I've got like just my like best of best folder. But in the main folder, I don't know if I should like rip every drum out of every sample pack or if I should just put the sample packs in drums.
Yeah, well, it depends because like I have two kind of like different stages of my library, right? There's this external drive that has terabytes of shit. That's awesome, right? Some of the best folders from that are in my places. But then when it comes to the ones that are in my user library, that's just the best of the best. And like I'll find one kick and I'll have a separate folder of kicks that's in my user library at Ableton called like, the best kicks ever, and then drag it in there, right? But the thing is, when you do that with your Ableton library, it doesn't actually reorganize where the files are on your hard drive at all, right? It's just storing the clip in your Ableton library, and the clip knows where that file is, and as long as you don't change the folder structure or whatever for the file, you're all good.
Okay. Yeah, I just got like a 1 terabyte hard drive, but so I was planning on putting like just my like top sounds of every category on that, but should I just put like my huge mass of files on that and then put my smaller library on Ableton?
Yeah, and then I keep my smaller library on the internal hard drive, and that's just the fucking cream of the crop, like just the juiciest possible stuff,
Okay.
And then that's on the internal hard drive. And then because it's like, sometimes you just want to bust your laptop out and rock for a bit, and like having to go get an external hard drive and like get all set up and stuff, it just makes you do it less.
Yeah.
So I like to just have like, I always go for at least a terabyte of internal storage when I'm buying a computer, and then I load it up with just the best stuff. But all the like big libraries and like all my native instruments libraries and all my like just giant folders and folders of samples, those are all in an external. And then whenever I get a new external, I name it the same thing. Like whenever I want to replace it or whatever, and I know that like, you know, if I'm gonna have a new hard drive, I'll name it the same thing, and then it won't break all the file references.
Right. Cool. Word.
Yeah. Okay, so let's check out this tune. I'm gonna switch over to sharing mode here. Actually, here, let's click the gear and make sure loopback is on. Yep, loopback is on. Switch to studio mode. Are you getting any funky echoes?
No.
You're good?
Yeah.
Okay, sick. All right, so no headphones. Yay. Okay, down the rabbit hole we go. Okay, so let's check out this tune. Oh, that's a cool sound. Turn shit off when you're not using it. It's off there. Cool. Okay, so there's definitely a lot to like about this track. There's a lot of really cool sounds. A lot of the parts are good, and the way it all kind of fits together and is composed is really nice. Most of your problems are more on the sound design side than on the mix side or the composition side. So that's a good place to be.
For sure.
So some things that I can think of that will, I mean, the basic overlying kind of area that could use improvement is just the tone of the sound. You know, it sounds like a lot of the sounds are really like very perfect and very digital sounding, and the texture, it kind of like I think you could probably improve the texture of the sounds and make them sound a little bit more alive by including a bit more randomness in the sounds and a bit more like non-linearity and like distortions and stuff that are less less perfect sounding. You know, like it all sounds really perfect and nice. So I think some things that you can do right away are adding side chaining for sure. I don't. It's been a while since I've seen someone not side chain a track, but a little bit of side chaining will go a long way with this one, especially with your mid basses, right? And then I'd like to see you doing a bit more parallel processing with your racks. Like most of your chains seem to be pretty straight up. I don't know. Were you doing a lot of parallel processing before you flattened stuff?
By parallel processing, do you mean like adding the same processing to a lot of noises to make them sound like
No, I
better?
mean make it like wet dry processing things. Like when you take a effect and you like, let's say we were gonna add some cabinet. You know, you take a cabinet, put it in a rack, put it on a wet dry. So you have dry, and then you have cabinet, and then get the EQ and like EQ it. You know, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Because I think a lot of that sort of processing, especially when you get it moving, can really help, right?
Yeah.
So I want to just go to your bass sounds here. Okay, so I'm gonna go take a compressor.
And this track's pretty old. It's like probably going on like 7 months now. It's just everything I've made since then is so unfinished.
Yeah, yeah, I feel
So
you. No, it's good to
it's moving
show
on.
me something at this stage. Yeah,
Yeah.
it was the right move. Okay, so check it out. I want a shorter hit with this kick drum, right? I want a shorter hit. And kick drums, like if you look at the spectrum, see the highs die. See the highs die and then the lows come up? So the highs are shorter than the lows. Which means that if you take your side chain and you turn the EQ on and EQ it to just the highs, you get a nice short click. Right? And then the release parameter becomes a lot more useful because the click is shorter. So you can kind of balance it here, and then don't be afraid to crank the gain until you get just the sidechain shape you want. So you can make it shorter with this, you can make it deeper with this, and then you can make it longer with this. So if you want to...
Yeah, I'm not as comfortable with compression as I could be.
come to the new mixing workshop. I'm doing another one in a little bit. But there's a bunch of stuff about like EQ and compression and shit that'll help.
A little bit like higher, a little bit like squeaky.
Just watch for the promos on it.
Yeah, I get the email. I'll try to.
Yeah, see if you can come. I think it's in a couple weeks.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, so basically, what this is doing is for every 1 unit of volume that comes in, it's turning the bass down 2 units of volume. That's what that 2 to 1 ratio means.
Yeah, I'm more uncomfortable with the attack and release.
Okay, so attack, you want it to be really fast because as soon as that kick drum hits, you want that bass gone instantly, right? And the release is how long it takes to return to normal once the click is over. So this release parameter, that's going to turn the shape going up. Because you want to basically make the opposite shape of this. So it fits like a yin-yang, you know what I'm saying?
What do you mean?
You know the yin-yang symbol?
Yo, definitely.
Yeah, you want to make it like a yin-yang so that as this envelope of bass decreases, like, because this transient, there's not a ton of bass there. Most of the bass in a kick is like after.
Right.
But you want to basically make it so that it's like the opposite of that shape, so that they fit together, right?
Gotcha.
So you would make the click shorter by high passing it, because remember the high frequency components of the kick, when we put the spectrum on there, the high frequency components are over faster and the low frequency components are longer. So we make a short click by high passing it using this EQ inside the sidechain. So now the signal is shorter, and then we use this release parameter to give it a nice curved exit. Right, so you get, probably want that same sidechain on your sub. And then you're also probably going to want a sidechain on your bass from your snare. Snare plus clap, yeah. But the snare, I want to take a narrow band, because most of the energy of the snare is going to be in here in the low mids. Make the release shorter. Right? That'll get everything out of the way of get the bass and the leads out of the way of your kick and snare. It will really help. I'm gonna do it to your sub too. Whoa.
So when I have a song, I don't think this one does, I don't remember, but when the sub bass lines up with the kick, do I want to like cut all the sub bass out of the kick and EQ?
No, with a kick like this, you need the power of the sub of the kick to drive the beat, because it's a big, slow, plodding dubstep beat, right? Whereas, like, if you're doing like a drum and bass beat, for example, a lot of the time they'll have these, like, or even trap beats, they'll have these tiny little kicks that are just basically a transient in the low mids, you know, and they're not even like a deep thud, you know, because the sub is filling that in. But with a track like this, you need it to just fucking stomp. So,
So if it was a different track,
yeah,
if it was a different track where the sub hit every time you kick it,
it depends. It depends on the way you've set up your kick and your sub. But that relationship is like the foundation of your mix, right? Just remember, you want them to fit like a yin yang. So if the kick is short, you want the sidechain shape, like the hole, the kick-shaped hole that's made in the sub by the sidechain, you want that to be short. If the kick is long, you're going to need to have a longer sidechain, right? Because you need them to fit together, like a yin yang, you know, like exactly the same shape but opposite.
So, all right, I think I get it.
Okay, so now I'm going to take your drums, I'm going to put them all in a group, and I'm going to put the drum bus plugin on them because it rocks.
Yeah, I made this before that came out, I think.
And then usually you want to turn your hi-hats down a bit. That's about the same level, right? Oh no, I was going up to 6. Okay, so now this bass one, right? I want to do some parallel processing on this bass for you to just kind of open it up and make it feel a little less static, give it a little bit more grit. So I'm going to take this audio effect rack, right? And I'm going to put an amp in it, and I'm going to put it in parallel. So you see how I do that? I expand the chains. Here's the chain with the effect on it, and I'm going to drag it to an empty chain. And now that one's dry. This one has the effect. So now I'm going to slowly...
How is that different from just changing the dry? Why not?
Because if you have more than one effect, you lose the dry signal entirely as soon as you have more than one effect. If you don't do it this way, you have no dry signal at all.
What do you mean? Like if I drag
okay, let's say, right, that I take a glass of water and I put 10 drops of water into that, or 10 drops of ink into that glass of water, right? Then if I take another glass that has clear water and I pour a little bit of the water with ink in it, the clear water now has ink in it.
Right.
It's the same thing with the wet and dry signal.
But that
right?
amp,
Because if I turn the wet dry like this, and it's
yeah.
50-50, and then I put another effect, like let's say the echo, what the echo gets is 50-50. So even if I put this at 50-50, there's never a 0% anymore. 0% is gone now. There's no 0%. Because this is leaving here 50-50.
Right, but if that echoes outside of that effects rack, and you do it your way where you leave the dry or the wet at 100 and then you make a dry chain, isn't that the same?
No, it's not, because the dry chain from this one does not connect to the dry chain from this one. There's only one set of outputs from this plugin. And that set of outputs is now partially wet. So there's
you're saying you put another effect in that rack?
Any other effect. Any other effect.
Right.
So
I thought you meant outside the rack.
Yeah, so if you have more than one effect in a row and you're not doing this, there's no more dry signal. It's gone.
But like not for that reverb right there, right?
Yes, now after the reverb, all of the signal is a little bit wet now.
Right, but not before it.
But not before it. So I want to have a series of effects that are one wet chain. Okay?
Gotcha.
And then I'm going to mix that against the dry chain, and I'm going to preserve the audio fidelity of the dry chain so that the dry chain is still dry and nice. Okay?
Gotcha.
So I'm going to start with an amp, and then I'm going to put a filter, right? And put this amp in stereo, I guess, and then I'll put it into a bandpass filter. Now I want to solo this. So here, I'll show you what we have now. Right, so we have this like distorted kind of. Right, you can change. And now I'm going to take a saturator and put it after that. Right, and then put a little bit of LFO on this. And then I'm going to put the two ears out of phase slightly. Now I'm going to sidechain this filter from the fucking kick. So the kick is going to trigger an envelope on this filter now. So you hear how that layer is like moving now, right? And now, so here it is without the extra processing. But you see how that's like kind of static?
Yeah.
And then there's just that little bit of LFO movement and that little bit of sidechain from the kick are just making it like pump and breathe with the rest of the track and making it feel like alive, right?
Gotcha.
So you can make these parallel chains to do whatever, you know, like you can get as crazy as you want because you always have the dry signal. But if you start just fucking piling plugins one after the other, your dry signal eventually falls apart, right? So another thing that I often will do is I will have, you know, maybe a side chain on only the affected signal, or I'll put the auto pan and do the fake side chain trick where you sync it, you put them in phase, you put on like quarter notes, and then put on saw wave and flip it. Now you have a fake side chain. Also add this mode that you add separate. Right? So you can do that kind of stuff and make this thing move up and down, like get the filter here, right? And then you can just like automate passes with it. So put on a You can just automate it with the mouse or with whatever. You know?
Right.
But
And when you were talking about the yin yang, were you saying like this, like if the highs curve in that way, the bass has got to curve out that way?
hang on, let me see you. Yeah, yeah, exactly. That basically
That
but
is the
not really, because there's no like there's a gap in that particular sound between the transient and the sub hitting, but not every sound has an envelope shape like that.
right.
Right? So that one, like, that's not a normal looking kick where there's got the tight transient and then the little dip and then the big sub.
Right.
Most kicks, it's like a smooth transition. But yeah, you'd want it to basically be the opposite shape. Like the volume of the sub would have a kick shaped hole in the sub.
In that case.
Yeah. Okay, cool. So yeah, and then other kind of playable effects, I think you should definitely experiment with doing like something with the way this track starts, like it starts just guns blazing, you know?
Yeah.
So I would say ease up on the hi-hats, probably until the drop. Probably ease up on your snare. Okay, and then where's your lead? It's here. I feel like this needs a bit of vibrato on it. I'll show you how to make a vibrato. You turn the time off, turn that all the way down, feedback all the way down, open up the filter, right? Then you go to the modulation tab, turn the modulation up a little bit. Then open this up. See how it just bends the pitch a little and it does it different on the left and right ears? It sounds so fucking sick. Just opens it right up. And the pitch is bent now, so it's like anything with a bent pitch stands out a little bit.
Right.
But those little bits of movement that you put into the sounds, because especially when you're using samples, like when you get to a point in the song, such as, where is our fucking section? There was this one section that was so edity. Yeah, I think it's in here. Yeah, when you get to a point in the song like this, right? When this type of shit is happening. Right, like these guys. Where's the woink, woink, woink noise? It's like a little laser.
Laser riser or laser riser? Laser.
Yeah, this shit. Does it stay the same? Yeah, it does. Okay, so probably put an auto pan on this. Oh, it's gotta be faster. Where's laser? Right, so there it is. Yeah, have that.
Is Google Hangouts stereo?
Let me double check. Yeah, it should be in stereo, but I guess it's not. Anyway, having that stereo will really open it up. And kind of get those sounds out of the way. And like all these little ear candy noises that just kind of happen for a second and then they're gone, those are really good things to do like stereo effects or like big slow movements on or whatever. A lot of the time risers can seem really kind of static. I also like to, I mean, yeah, there's a lot of highs on this. This group, I think, needs a little
What's
bit.
the channel you give?
Oh, it's a new Ableton device. It's really nice, really useful.
Like you just done the 10.1 update?
Yeah.
Oh damn.
Yeah, there's a bunch of new things. Lots of new stuff. It's really good. Okay, so this guy, I would say maybe a bit of frequency shifter. Yeah, frequency shifter usually sounds real good on sounds like that. Yeah, really. Okay, so then you also need this thing called the noise wash, right? And I covered that in a lesson that I did earlier this week with Katie. So you should definitely check that out. Here, I'll stop sharing. Yeah, you should definitely check that out. So this noise wash layer, basically, it's like, because your track doesn't have any noises that are not like immediately part of the composition, and a good like kind of rule of thumb, right, is that probably about numerically, I'd say about a third of your sounds are designed to be not heard, right? So you're sticking to the sounds that are designed to be heard in the composition when you're composing. So everything feels very like, you know, it's like, there's not this like sense of depth and like richness to it that you get when you kind of incorporate sounds that have more imperfections and more just kind of like wildness about them. So I would say like experiment with making things that sound psychoacoustic, you know? So risers are kind of like the obvious example that everybody uses, where it's like just tickling the edges of the stereo spectrum and kind of like giving you that rising feeling. But a lot of the time there's lots of other tracks that are providing really killer amounts of atmosphere that, you know, might sound like super muffled or like far away or like barely noticeable, but together they back up the rest of the groove and really give it that like individual kind of personality, you know? So I would say that if you experiment by, I mean, making mud pies is a good idea, but also experiment with like low pass filter, because I don't hear you using a lot of low pass filter in your music, and low pass filter is like one of the most powerful tools in all of electronic music, but it's so simple that a lot of the time people don't really gravitate to it. But having things be pitched down and having things have low pass filter on them, like you still knock out the subs, you don't want unnecessary subs, right? But having things be like kind of pitched down and like a little bit lo-fi and a little bit muffled, right? Having some of those sounds that are in there providing some like texture and just some like a little bit of rhythmic imperfection to the sound can really help give it life. And then I would also say that you should really look into getting, you know, more in depth with your group effects, right? So you have all these groups, and the groups are mixed amazing, the sounds are great, the riffs are great, it all goes together great. It just needs to like dance and move together and like tell a story, right? So if you go into my studio template, there's all these racks that are like on the channels, and then in my my timer template, but you can make them yourself too, where you just like, you know, you get a low pass filter out, You make it a one macro that controls the filter, and so you don't have to think about it. Just set your favorite low pass filter ending point and have it end open with the filter turned off so it's dry, and then the racks use no CPU when they're not on, because at the top of the knob it turns the device off. You can see how to do that in the Racks weekly download.
Yeah, I know. That's pretty easy.
Okay, cool. So you want to make it so that the very top position turns everything dry, and then as you go down, the effect is stronger, right? And then that way, whenever you're automating things, right, you just automate down. So it's like a mute or an effect or whatever, you automate down, because you can modulate down from the clip. When you go to a parameter, you right click and show modulation, and then you modulate the parameter. Do that as much as possible. Okay? Always try to avoid anything that involves stopping and editing automation, right? Because the more you get into that, the more fucking time consuming and shit the whole process becomes. And when you're trying to get the really crazy shit, it's better to just be chaotic with the way you interact with the parameters than to sit there and edit some super complicated fucking curve with a million breakpoints. It's better to just use your hands or record or just fuck shit up randomly with the mouse than it is to sit there editing. So so I would say definitely include more randomness and more psychoacoustic sounds, and have more sounds that are kind of that are just providing texture, because right now all of your stuff has the texture of a commercial sound library, right? It's all nice sounds, they're mixed really well, the composition is really good, but the texture of your music sounds like it came off the shelf, So you need to, now that you can compose well, now that you have an ear for the mix, now that now it's time to really start getting your hands dirty with sound design and start being a little bit more free with your sound design and a little bit more chaotic, and also to be really on the lookout for exploring ways to add movements to sounds that are existing, so that they don't feel like they're just a sample looping. It should feel like there's a constant dance of parameters across the channels. Experiment with detuning things slightly, not just detuning them to oscillators, but also sometimes if you have a part that's not fitting in the mix, try putting it a little bit out of tune. That can really work. If you take the whole master pitch of the synth or sampler and move it 15 cents or something to one side, sometimes it'll just line up, and all these phase problems that you were having before are suddenly solved, and it just sounds better, right? So fuck with that a little bit, because that'll make things sound a little less perfect too. You might want to experiment with the groove library, the groove pool in Ableton, and just learn how that works, because you can apply groove to an unwarped clip and it still hits that same spot in the groove on the timeline, right?
Yeah,
If you have unwarped
groove and trying to figure out how to program it and in the pocket and in time. Everything I've ever made is Mac right over it, so.
Yeah, it's sometimes too it's nice to have sounds that one way you can start to experiment, here, I'll show you this is really cool. It fucks your latency, but it's so interesting. You learn something every time you do it. One really quick way to add groove that I often use, but I don't leave it on, is this way, where you go in and you adjust the track offset. So let's put the snare slightly early. So I'll put the snare 15 milliseconds early, and let's put the hats slightly late. Let's put the hats 20 milliseconds late. Actually, let's do the hats early, minus 25, and let's do the snare late, say 15. Right? And when you do that during mixdown, right away, though that's 9 milliseconds one way and 8 the other, you can really hear the difference.
So how do you choose what is late, what's early, and how much?
experiment. You just experiment and see what sounds good.
For sure.
Yeah, like it's not usually more than like 10 milliseconds. But sometimes it's nice because the kick and snare transients are really dominant. So sometimes it's nice to cheat something else first, and it like acts like a little pre-transient transient.
Right.
And it makes it feel like you're swooping into the next beat. Right? So you can experiment like that, and then what I normally do is I'm like, oh, okay, I want that much of an amount, and then I'll like edit it and then take that back down. But it can be really nice to have effect. Yeah, and like these drums, like you need way more drum sounds than just the basic kick, basic snare, and basic hi-hat. Like those sounds are all really good to have in there, and lots of songs have those particular sounds in there because they sit in the mix really nice, and they're like, you know, they stand repetition well, right? But you're probably going to want to get some other sounds that make the drum kit sound a little spicier and a little more unique and a little more, you know, bespoke to you. So crackles, field recordings, laser zaps, vocal chops, like all that kind of stuff. And if you go into the 2018 sample library, there's these there's the drum rack samples folder, and there's subfolders of spice sounds. They're all fucking organized, so your drums need more spice.
All right.
So get some sounds in there that are like, you know, like maybe recorded with a microphone, or like, you know, maybe they're really sound designy, or they're really like just something that's abnormal about them, and then sequence them into the drums as though they were part of the percussion. And then also you're probably going to want to provide like some different texture to different snare hits. Like, you know, sometimes drum beats will have like one snare that's short and one snare that's long, one snare that's short and one snare that's long, and it like adds another dimension of flow to the beat, you know. So or like have the snare be one way for 4 bars, and then have the snare be another way for 4 bars, you know. And it breaks up the fact that it's really fucking repetitive, that this same snare is hitting again and again and again, right? And that's, I think, really important to the texture of the music as well.
For sure.
So yeah, so add progress with the group effects, like lots of low passes opening, lots of like momentary glitch effects on the groups, record stop effects on the groups, gate effects on the groups, you know, shit like that, where you can just play it in or write it in, but just get it so the groups are moving, and then use more movement and parallel processing in the sound design of your main sounds, so that they sound like a little bit more lively, and they're kind of jumping out and sitting on top of the mix a bit. And then then dirty it up and get some more of your own sounds in there, and some spicier drums.
For sure. Cool.
All right, word. So any questions about any of that?
No, it's all pretty clear. Is this going to be available to put rewatch?
Yeah, I'm gonna put it up in the 808 section.
Cool, awesome.
Sweet, and then I'll get you your project file too.
Cool. You can drag it back into that folder I put if you want.
Okay, I'm not sure.
Or you can just do it a different way.
Yeah, I'll probably send it a different way, to be honest.
Whatever.
But you'll get it. All right. Lots of love.
Yeah, thanks so much.
Yeah, no problem. Peace.
Have a good night.
You too.